And now, let's join ace broadcaster Mamode Akugha as he takes us inside the Niger Delta.
"25 years after the annulment of the June 12, 1993 presidential election and the arrest, detention, and subsequent death of the acclaimed winner of that election, Chief Moshood Kashimawo Abiola, popularly known as MKO, the government of President Muhammadu Buhari recently commenced a process of national healing and reconciliation with the validation of the annulled presidential election of June 12, 1993, and an apology to the family of Chief MKO Abiola. The election, which is arguably the freest and most credible ever conducted in the country, was presumably won by foremost business mogul and sports philanthropist Chief MKO Abiola and his running mate, Ambassador Babagana Kingibe. The annulment of the election without cogent reasons by the military junta of self-styled military president Ibrahim Babangida had sparked up general outcry in the country, which was battling to stage a return to a democratic regime at the time. Following the annulment of that election were a series of sordid events that altogether add up to Nigeria's national tragedy. Several pro-democracy activists fighting to actualize the collective will of Nigerians were hounded and brutalized by the government of the day. Yet the people remained resilient in their demand for the declaration of the winners of the election. There was palpable tension in the land, which outlived the administration of former military president Ibrahim Babangida. It was a helpless situation for the succeeding interim government led by Chief Ernest Shonekan. After failing to suppress the political unrest it inherited from the previous regime, the interim national government was toppled by the late dictator General Sani Abacha, who proved to be even more repressive and brutal than the actual protagonist of the annulment of the 1993 presidential election. Against all odds, Chief Abiola and his wife Kudirat fought relentlessly to get justice. Painfully, however, they both died in the struggle. Abiola in solitary confinement and Kudirat through the bullets of assassins. The many tragedies occasioned by the annulment of June 12, 1993 presidential election had culminated in a deep wound that festered with each passing day until President Buhari recently apologized to the family of Chief Abiola.
Accordingly, on behalf of the federal government, I tender the nation's apology to the family of late MKO Abiola, who got the highest vote, and to those that lost their loved ones in the cause of June 12 struggle.
In a bid to further assuage the feelings of Nigerians, Mr. President invested the presumed winner of the election with the nation's highest honor, Grand Commander of the Federal Republic, GCFR, reserved for heads of states. As the President rightly observed during the investiture, the decision was to promote national healing and reconciliation. This singular action by the Buhari government, though criticized by some Nigerians as a political gimmick, targeted at winning votes from the Southwest, has to a large extent brought some healing and reconciliation to the country, as well as the promotion of peace and unity, which Nigeria desperately needs to continue to exist as an indivisible entity. It is in the same vein that some Niger Deltans are urging the federal government to extend the same goodwill to the Ogoni people of the Niger Delta. Recall that the oil giant Shell Petroleum Development Company, SPDC, had commenced exploration in Ogoni land in Rivers State in 1958, drilling a total of 96 wells to bring 9 oil fields on stream. By the end of 1992, Ogoni production was some 28,000 barrels of oil daily. While Shell's exploration activities were going on, the Ogoni say their environment was completely polluted and their health endangered. Till date, Ogoni land remains polluted, with some villages evacuated and designated unfit for human habitation. The people's struggle for environmental justice and meaningful existence had resulted in the formation in 1990 of the Movement for the Survival of Ogoni People, MOSOP, and the enunciation of the Ogoni Bill of Rights, which placed several demands on the federal government and the oil giant Shell. MOSOP was led by Ken Saro-Wiwa, a writer, television producer, and environmental activist.
Even though I was young, I could see that nothing was coming to the Ogoni people from the oil. And I started writing about it almost immediately, even though I was only a high school student at the time. This spill has been going on for the last 6 weeks. This sort of pollution, to live with it in an area where land is in very high demand, is completely destructive of the community.
Saro-Wiwa preached a non-violent struggle for environmental justice.
We are going to demand our rights peacefully, non-violently, and we shall win.
Surprisingly, the non-violent struggle had succeeded in dislodging Shell from Ogoni land, an action which prompted the government of the late General Sani Abacha to respond with brute force. Several raids were carried out on Ogoni communities in which several people in their hundreds were killed and property worth billions of naira were destroyed. The rent-seeking Nigerian state, in connivance with the Anglo-Dutch oil giant Shell, had introduced a policy of divide and rule in the oil-producing communities of Ogoni land. This led to an internal crisis that resulted in the killing of 4 prominent Ogoni sons, namely Albert Bade, Edward Kubani, Theophilus Orage, and Samuel Orage, otherwise known as the Ogoni Four. Saro-Wiwa and his counterparts, popularly referred to as Ogoni Nine, were wrongfully accused of masterminding the killings and arraigned before a kangaroo military tribunal that found them guilty of trumped-up charges. Ledu Mite was charged alongside the Ogoni Nine, but was discharged and acquitted.
Well, the Ogonis then blazed a trail. We blazed a trail in trying to see what oil exploitation was doing to us, and by extension, the whole of the Niger Delta. We felt threatened that we stood a clear chance of being eliminated because of the unsustainable manner in which oil was exploited from our land. And we came under the aegis of the Movement for the Survival of the Ogoni People that was led by the late Ken Saro-Wiwa and Ogoni leaders. I think the government of the day did not take that kindly. Looking back, I feel it was an attempt to give us a bloody nose so that the rest of the Niger Delta could learn their lessons not to do what the Ogonis were doing. And through all sort of means, they tried to create division in the area, to use this as an excuse to eliminate, and in fact did succeed in eliminating what I thought is a generation of Ogoni leadership, and use those sad events as an excuse to throw Ken and I and several others into detention. We spent 19 months behind bars in a very, very harsh environment. Such places, the level of detention situation we were put, I would not wish it even to my enemies. Because at a space, we only had space to just squat. If you wanted to sleep, then 2 other guys need to stand up a little bit astride, so you go under their feet. You had to urinate, and in fact, go to toilet right there in those circumstances. People were collapsing. We were put a little bit like animals, because in the morning, then people will be rushing to have an opportunity so that you see fresh air. So you volunteer that you want to throw, because they give you plastic these bottles of maybe Ragolis water, all that. That's what urinate inside. Then give you these polythene bags for toilet. And then we'll just pack it close to the door. So in the morning, people will be rushing to volunteer to throw them away to the bush, because that gives you opportunity of seeing outside. Those were the detention conditions in which we were put until after the trial, which have been condemned internationally and locally. I was lucky that they said I was not, they set me free, that I was found not guilty. But my colleagues were not that lucky, and they were all executed. So you find now that in total, about some 13 Ogoni, including our best of our leaders, sacrificed their lives in this struggle. And the whole of Ogoni was occupied by a force called the Internal Security Task Force then, that at the end of about 2,000 of Ogonis were killed, 14 communities completely destroyed, and several others were maimed.
With the benefit of hindsight, most Nigerians, including the Ogoni people and the international community, now realize that Saro-Wiwa and his kinsmen were political matters sent to the Gulletan for seeking redress from untold environmental degradation occasioned by decades of crude oil extraction in Ogoni land. Sensing that the tribunal, headed by Justice Ibrahim Auta, was bent on convicting the Ogoni Nine, the defense team, led by Femi Falana, withdrew from the tribunal.
Like it's Ken Saro-Wiwa today, it can be anybody's turn tomorrow. It was Abiola yesterday, it's Obasanjo and Yar'Adua today. It can be anybody's turn. With the greatest respect, sir, I humbly apply to withdraw from further representation.
Without any defense team, the Ogoni Nine were eventually convicted and hanged. It was on the basis of the widespread anger and condemnation of the federal government's action that the international community in 1995 declared Nigeria a pariah nation.
It was a fraudulent trial, a bad verdict, an unjust sentence, and it has now been followed by judicial murder. I don't think that is acceptable. I see no way in which it can be defended. And if the Harare principles mean anything, I do not myself see how Nigeria can stay in the Commonwealth until they return to democratic government.
That may have failed to meet the aspirations of the Ogoni people, who are still living in abject poverty, squalor, and desolation till date.
Since 2004 till today, my investments are no longer functional. My father died as a result of respiratory problem. My mother died as a result of respiratory problem. And yet, people are having miscarriages. People are having rashes. If you see people's body in the community, in village Gokana, Ogoni land, you will not like to stay here, even to lodge in any of their hotels. Because you don't know the bed you are going to lie on, whether another person that has contamination laid or lied on it before. Because of sicknesses. Let me tell you, if the sun was so high and you stood here for so long, you would have been inhaling and you will tell your driver, I beg, take me out of this place. No, this is not exaggeration. I'm telling you what is obtainable here. Even the fish we eat, you tear the intestines of the fish, you see crude oil. You cannot see a periwinkle within our creek again. And that is the commonest fish that the poor people can have access to.
Hundreds of promising Ogoni sons and daughters had died on account of their non-violent struggle, and those left behind still battle with several health challenges resulting from massive environmental degradation. The findings and report of the United Nations Environment Report, UNEP, in August 2011 clearly vindicates the actions of those who championed the Ogoni struggle and equally questions the role of the Nigerian state and its allies in the tragic events that occurred before and after the killing of the Ogoni Nine. In its assessment, UNEP reported that the magnitude of environmental pollution in Ogoni land was far more severe than imagined. suggesting a comprehensive cleanup process that will take about 30 years to restore the full health of the Ogoni environment. In analyzing the conflict situation in Ogoni land, credit must be given to President Buhari, who in August 2016 kick-started the ongoing environmental cleanup exercise in Ogoni land.
They must ensure that all companies carry out their operations in line with universal oil field best practices. This administration is laying a foundation for change. Therefore, the rule of law, good governance, as well as the security of our people are paramount.
For us as a people and the direct victims of the most brazen forms of environmental abuse, today is a watershed in a collective struggle for environmental justice from the Nigerian nation and the world community.
The process, however, has been painfully slow. Inside the Niger Delta urges the President and Commander-in-Chief, therefore, to impress it upon implementers of the Ogoni cleanup exercise to expedite action in restoring the health of the despoiled environment, which is the first and most important right of the people.
I cannot tell you that government is sincere about the cleanup. And because they are sincere, there are a lot of processes and a lot of structures that need to be in place before the cleanup can take up, knowing fully well that whatever we are doing in the cleanup is a new model. We don't have anywhere we are borrowing the case study from. It's a new thing entirely all over the world. And so a lot of things will be put in place to actually achieve this 30 years program. So that's our position.
Some Nigerians have also called on the federal government to apologize to the families of the Ogoni 9 and Ogoni 4, together known as the Ogoni 13, as well as the rest of Ogoni communities and the entire Niger Delta region for the untold injustice visited on them on account of their harmless struggle for an existence in Nigeria's treasure base. Some other Niger Deltans believe that honoring Ken Saro-Wiwa and other Ogoni activists at this time will promote true healing in Ogoni land in particular and the Niger Delta in general.
Honoring Ken Saro-Wiwa will really pacify the people of the Niger Delta. It will show to the world, that yes, the leadership in this country are beginning to think, and the Niger Delta people will now begin to feel proud that yes, we are now counted as Nigerians. Because right now, what the government is doing against the Niger Delta people does not suggest that we are Nigerians. Look at the East-West Road, the only road that leads into Niger Delta. Look at how long it has taken them to even fix it. But look at Abuja. Look at what oil well has done to a city that does not have one oil well. All the rich men in this country are rich because of oil. I came from my backyard. But there is no electricity in any community in the Niger Delta. There is no pipe and water in any community in Niger Delta. A lot of atrocities have been committed here. So people will feel happy for once that yes, a government is beginning to recognize us and treat us as human. And so we still feel that the government and leadership of this country see us as people that should not be alive, that all part of the Niger Delta should be an oil field. Of course, Yakasai said that during the trial and murder of Ken Saro-Wiwa, that nobody should live in Niger Delta, it should be an oil field. And that is their thinking, and that is what we believe. By what they are doing to us, Ken Saro-Wiwa did not pray for this country the time he was being murdered. Don't forget that, he has to pass through that harrowing experience more than 3 times before he died. I'm sure he did not pray for this country. He must have cost this country at the point of death. And you are taking oil from his territory to develop this country, it will not develop. You review, do a review, a complete review of that so-called trial. And those that killed him should, face the music. The poor Kuntumos, the custom boss now, Ahmed Ali was the only military officer on the tribunal. Ibrahim Auta, the immediate part chief judge of the Federal High Court. And all of them, Dauda Musa Komo, that contributed to all of them should face the music. Ken did not commit that offense. They have to do a review. It's not necessarily dropping the charges, but do a review. But when they begin to apologize and begin to, do the right thing that they are supposed to do, we begin to feel that after all, we are being treated like one, and we begin to behave like one.
As for Saro-Wiwa, I think it's our problem. We have not taken it up. We have not taken it up. You see that?
You mean the Niger Delta leader?
People did that. They fought it out. Now that you reminded me, we just suffered. He was murdered. And those who assisted Abacha to murder him should then hang their heads in shame. The evidence of his suffering is what we are talking about Ogoni today. He cried against what is going on there. So we'll take it up.
Ken Saro-Wiwa hanging, like I said, gave me the courage to confront Abacha government that you cannot dredge our river without environmental impact assessment. And if you want to even dredge after environmental impact assessment, you must develop all our seaports that are dead, like a Papa War for Lagos port. That is justice. It was Ken Saro-Wiwa's death that made us to conquer fear. So if we now that our Papa Chivike Clark has taken this decision that they will meet with the president, I know that the president will listen to them, because Ken Saro-Wiwa was harmless. He was using pamphlets to distribute, to seek for justice, and you hang that man. And apart from that, the whole world condemned the hanging of Ken Saro-Wiwa. Since the whole world condemned the hanging of Ken Saro-Wiwa, in fact, Nigeria was removed from so many international organizations. That shows that there is need for a healing process.
In 2005, during the Democracy Day by President Obasanjo, he said, amongst other things, that the nation was going to honor the Ogoni 13. Mind you, we've passed through the stage of just Ken there. We've got it to a stage that we remember people like Eti Bade, Kobani, the Orages, John Puinen, some other people, including Ken. All these people who were killed in those things, that suitable national monuments will be named after these people. That's 2005. 2005 is like almost 13 years ago. Now, nothing has happened. We are now at a stage, if that is what we are hearing, that we are revisiting, trying to right the wrongs of the past. And that has not been done. So I think more importantly, it's not just people's agitation, but government is a continuum. And so we should hold government to its promise. And they should just do that, if only to show that what you are doing today is actually some way of righting the wrongs of the past and not just a political gimmick.
The international community observed that the killing of Saro-Wiwa was unfair. He was fighting for the environment of his and the environmental rights of his people. He was harmless, he was not violent. And yet, the government of Nigeria at that time decided to kill him for speaking out for his people, which is very unfair. So we are appealing to Mr. President to extend the same kind of gesture in the spirit of healing the wounds of the past. And you know, Niger Delta is the bride of this country. We will appreciate it if we will extend it. A lot of our sons and daughters were also killed in this struggle. It is a fair struggle. It is a just struggle. It is a struggle to save the region. For instance, today, we have black suit everywhere. It is the people of Niger Delta that are suffering that black suit, particularly in River State. It's not every part of Nigeria that is suffering. The environmental hazard, the pollution, the gas flaring, it is the people that are suffering it. And so we're saying, let's get a better deal for this suffering. And somebody will fight for that. I don't think it's bad. And for that you kill the mother, Saro-Wiwa. And it was acclaimed to be the most brutal form of government in Africa. And the Commonwealth felt that Nigeria was working towards self-destruction. So if after all that, Mr. President has come to heal the June 12, which affected every Nigerian, because every Nigerian at that time, who was of votable age, voted. And they all voted, most of them voted for Abiola. And for you to annul Abiola and finally killed him, it's an injustice. So the same injustice applied to Saro-Wiwa and Ogoni 1918 and the entire people of Niger Delta. So we will be glad if it will extend the same thing to us.
This position is not without basis. The annulment of the June 12 elections and the mindless killing of the Ogoni 9 are acts of injustice perpetrated coincidentally by the Nigerian state in one of the darkest phases of Nigeria's history. In both situations, deep wounds were inflicted on the victims' direct families, their kith and kin, and the rest of the country, which makes it incumbent on the Nigerian authorities to apply the wisdom in the saying that what is good for the goose is also good for the gander. A retraction of the criminal charges preferred against Saro-Wiwa and other slain Ogoni sons and daughters will right the wrongs of the past and heal the wounds of the Ogoni people and their neighbors in the Niger Delta. This is without a shadow of doubt the way to go in the ongoing process of national reconciliation and peace building embarked upon by the federal government.
There is no possibility whatsoever that I or Mossad could ever have planned any such action, and I will forever disavow it, no matter what any forum decides upon. I appeal to you, my Lord, for only one thing. The Ogoni people have suffered tremendously in this country. They have made tremendous contributions to this country. Niger Delta itself is in serious trouble. We need every assistance that we can get